Let me tell you about something remarkable that happened in January 2025. Something that made NVIDIA lose 18% of its stock value in one day. Something that made Donald Trump call a Chinese technological breakthrough, a positive development. A Chinese AI startup called DeepSeek released an open source language model, DeepSeek R1, completely free, MIT license, anyone can use it, anyone can modify it, anyone can build on it, and this model, this free open source model, matched OpenAI's most advanced reasoning system while costing 95 to 98% less to run, not slightly cheaper, not moderately cheaper, 95 to 98% cheaper. $6 million to train versus OpenAI's $100 million for GPT-4, 1/10 the computing power of Meta's comparable model, and open source. Completely open source, weights published, training methods documented, code available for free. Denau ardi tiribalkan farishomtet, tirochor ortrotapi, tiribalkan farishomtet, tiribalkan farishomtet, tirochor ortrotapi, 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 tiribalkan farishomtet, 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 tiribalkan farishomtet. This sounds like victory for open technology, for democratic access, for breaking Silicon Valley's monopoly on advanced AI. This sounds like liberation. But let me show you why this is actually something else entirely. Why this free model is perhaps the most sophisticated form of ideological capture we have seen. Why open source can be the opposite of freedom. First, the immediate reaction, the market panic. On January 27, 2025, DeepSeek's chatbot became the #1 downloaded app on Apple's App Store in the United States, surpassing ChatGPT, and the markets reacted. NVIDIA stock dropped 18% in one day, 18%. Billions of dollars evaporated. Why? Because if China can build equivalent AI models for $6 million instead of 100 million, if they can do it with 1/10 the computing power, then what is the value of NVIDIA's expensive GPUs? What is the value of Silicon Valley's massive infrastructure investments? What is the value of spending hundreds of millions on training when China achieves the same result for pocket change? This was called a Sputnik moment, a paradigm shift, proof that American AI dominance was illusion, that China had found a way around US chip export controls, that containment had failed. And then something interesting happened. The markets recovered. NVIDIA stock climbed back. The panic subsided. Silicon Valley executives called DeepSeek impressive and continued business as usual. This recovery is important. This is where ideology shows itself. Because the panic was not about DeepSeek being good. The panic was about uncertainty, about not knowing what this meant. But once the system understood what this meant, once it processed the information, it realized nothing fundamental needs to change. The threat can be absorbed. Now let me tell you about the actual model, about what DeepSeek R1 is and how it works. DeepSeek R1 is what is called a reasoning model, like OpenAI's. It does not just generate text, it reasons. It thinks through problems step by step, shows its work, verifies its answers. On mathematics benchmarks, R1 scored 79.8% on AIM 2024. OpenAI R1 scored 79.2%. On coding competitions, R1 achieved 2029 ELO rating, outperforming 96.3% of human programmers, and it did this while being trained primarily through reinforcement learning. Without massive supervised fine-tuning, the AI essentially taught itself to reason through trial and error like humans learn. This is genuinely impressive. This is real technological achievement. I am not diminishing this. The engineering is sophisticated. The results are documented. This is not propaganda. But here is where it gets interesting. Here is where ideology enters. Now meet DeepSeek. R1 was released under MIT license. This is one of the most permissive open source licenses. It allows unrestricted commercial use, allows modifications, allows derivative works, including training other AI models using DeepSeek's methods. This is radical openness. This is what open source advocates dream of. Technology freed from corporate control, available to everyone for free. But there is something else in the model, something built in, something that cannot be removed without retraining from scratch. The model follows Chinese Communist Party ideology more strictly than previous Chinese models. This is not my interpretation. This is documented. Researchers who tested the model confirmed R1 adheres more tightly to official CCP positions than earlier versions. Ask it about Tiananmen Square CCP line, Taiwan independence CCP line, Xinjiang CCP line. Any topic the party has position on, the model follows the party. Not because someone is monitoring and filtering, but because the censorship is baked into the model, built into the weights, embedded in the training, part of the system itself. So you have free open source AI that anyone can use for any purpose without restrictions, except the AI itself has restrictions, has built-in ideology, has pre-programmed political positions. You are free to use the AI, but the AI is not free. The AI is ideologically captured from the inside. This is genius. This is ideological engineering at its finest. Because the usual way to control technology is through access. Make it proprietary, make it expensive, make it restricted. But this creates resistance, creates demand for open alternatives, creates motivation to break the control. DeepSeek does the opposite, gives you the technology completely open, completely free, but the technology itself contains the ideology, embeds the control, makes the restrictions. You think you are using free AI. You think you have access to unrestricted technology. But every response is filtered through CCP worldview. Every output reflects party positions. Every use reinforces the ideology. And you cannot remove this. Not easily. You would need to retrain the entire model from scratch, which requires exactly the resources most people do not have, the computing power, the training data, the expertise. So you accept the model as is. Use it despite the censorship because it is free, because it is good, because the alternative is paying significantly more for Western models. This is how ideology works most effectively, not through force, not through restriction, through offering something desirable that contains the ideology within itself. Now let me tell you about the geopolitical context, about why this happened and what it reveals about the AI race. Plus, in 2022, the Biden administration implemented chip export controls, specifically targeting China's access to advanced AI chips. NVIDIA's A100s, the high-performance GPUs needed for training large AI models. The logic was simple. If China cannot access the hardware, China cannot build advanced AI. If we control the chips, we control the race. And this worked. Partially, China did lose access to cutting-edge hardware, had to make do with older chips, less powerful chips. This did slow Chinese AI development, did create disadvantage. But here is what the policy did not account for, did not predict, did not understand. Restriction creates motivation. Scarcity creates innovation. Being cut off from resources forces finding new methods. DeepSeek did not have access to unlimited H100s, did not have massive GPU clusters, so DeepSeek innovated, found more efficient training methods, developed techniques that required less computing power, achieved comparable results with fraction of resources. The cheap controls did not stop Chinese AI development. They redirected it, forced it to become more efficient, more innovative, more creative. This is the paradox of containment. Containment assumes the contained will simply be weaker, will be limited, will fall behind. But containment can also be catalyst, can force innovation that would not happen under abundance. Silicon Valley had unlimited access to hardware. So Silicon Valley threw hardware at problems, bigger models, more parameters, massive training runs, hundreds of millions of dollars, because why not? Resources were available. But China did not have this luxury, so China had to think differently, had to find smarter approaches, had to innovate around the restrictions. And the result is DeepSeek R1. $6 million, 1/10 the computing power, same performance, not despite the restrictions, because of the restrictions. The containment created the innovation. It was meant to prevent. This reveals something profound about how power works, about how control backfire, about how restrictions can produce exactly what they were designed to stop. The US wanted to maintain AI dominance through chip controls, but chip controls forced China to develop methods that make chips less important, less critical, less necessary. The control created the conditions for escaping the control. The restriction became self-defeating. And now the technology is open source, available to everyone, including American researchers, including small startups who cannot afford massive GPU clusters, including everyone. China could have kept this proprietary, could have maintained the advantage, but by open sourcing, China spreads the innovation, makes it global, makes it universal. This is strategic brilliance, not just building better technology, but spreading technology that undermines the US control strategy, making chips less important, making efficiency more important, making containment obsolete. Now let me tell you about Donald Trump's reaction, because this reveals how ideology captures even those who claim to resist it. Trump has made opposing China central to his political identity. Trade wars, tech restrictions, aggressive rhetoric, America first means China last. So when Chinese AI startup beats American companies at their own game, when China achieves with 6 million what America spent 100 million on, when China demonstrates that US containment failed, Trump should be furious, yes? No. Trump called it a positive development, called it a wake-up call, said it will motivate American industry to sharpen their competitive edge. Read this carefully. China beats America. Trump calls this positive, frames defeat as motivation. This is not spin. This is not just political rhetoric. This is ideological capture. Trump cannot admit defeat, cannot acknowledge that containment failed. So defeat becomes opportunity. Threat becomes motivation. Loss becomes wake-up call. The ideology must preserve itself, must maintain the narrative, must frame everything as ultimately serving American interests. Even Chinese victories become good for America because they motivate, because they wake us up, because they sharpen our edge. But if Chinese victories motivate American innovation, then Chinese victories are necessary, are productive, are part of the process that makes America great. So Trump ends up celebrating what he's supposed to oppose, praising what he's supposed to fight, accepting defeat while calling it progress. This is how ideology works. not by making you believe lies, but by creating framework where even opposing facts get absorbed into the narrative, where even defeats confirm the worldview. China wins. This proves we need to win more. Chinese efficiency challenges our spending. This proves we need to spend more efficiently. China bypasses our controls. This proves we need better controls. Every challenge confirms the approach. Every failure justifies continuing. Every defeat becomes a reason to keep fighting. The system is unfalsifiable because every piece of evidence gets interpreted through the ideology. Nothing can challenge the framework because the framework interprets everything as supporting itself. Now, let me show you the cost paradox, because this reveals something about how value works in capitalist systems. OpenAI spent $100 million training GPT-4. DeepSeek spent $6 million training R1. Same performance, $94 million difference. So was OpenAI spending waste, inefficiency? Could they have achieved same result for $6 million? Maybe, maybe not. Here is the deeper question. Does cost matter the same way for different players? When OpenAI spends $100 million, it is demonstrating capability, showing investors it has resources, building confidence, creating perception of seriousness, of scale, of dominance. But the spending is not just about results. The spending is performance, is signal, is proof of commitment. Silicon Valley investors want to see massive spending, want to see companies betting big, want to see hundreds of millions invested in infrastructure, because this signals belief. But DeepSeek is different player. DeepSeek is proving efficiency can beat resources, that smart approaches can overcome hardware limitations, that you do not need massive infrastructure to compete. So the 6 million is also performance, also signal, also proof of different kind of capability. The cost difference is not just about efficiency, it is about two different logics, two different systems, two different ways of demonstrating value. OpenAI's 100 million says, we have unlimited resources. We can outspend anyone. We win through scale. DeepSeek 6 million says, we innovate under constraints, we find smarter methods, we win through efficiency. Both are true, both work, but they work in different contexts, under different systems, within different ideologies. The question is not which is better. The question is, what does each approach reveal about the system that produces it? Silicon Valley spending reveals system built on abundance, on venture capital, on massive investments chasing massive returns, on demonstrating capability through spending. DeepSeek spending reveals system built on constraints, on state backing, on strategic goals beyond profit, on demonstrating capability through efficiency. Neither is inherently superior, but the difference reveals the ideological foundations, the systemic logics, the ways value is created and demonstrated in different systems. And here is the beautiful irony. The expensive system calls itself competitive, calls itself market-driven, calls itself efficient. The cheap system is called state-controlled, called strategic, called inefficient. But which system achieved same results for less money? Which system innovated under restrictions? Which system demonstrated actual efficiency? The ideology is inverted. The free market system is less efficient. The state system is more efficient. But the free market system maintains ideological claim to efficiency, despite evidence. This is how ideology protects itself, not by being true, by controlling the framework of evaluation, by determining what counts as evidence, by defining what efficiency means. Now let me return to the open source question, to the free AI that is not free. The MIT license is genuine. You can use R1, can modify it, can build on it, can create derivative works without restrictions, without payments, without permission. This is real openness, real accessibility. This is what open source means technically. But openness of code does not mean openness of ideology. Accessibility of technology does not mean accessibility of perspective. The model is open, but the model's worldview is closed, fixed, embedded. You cannot change it without rebuilding from scratch. So you have situation where technology is free, but ideology is mandatory, where access is open, but perspective is controlled. This is new form of control, not control through restriction, control through distribution, through making control technology so accessible that controlling access become unnecessary. Balkan, why restrict access to technology that contains your ideology? Why limit distribution of tool that reinforces your worldview? Why make it difficult to access AI that better strategy? Make it free, make it open, make it easy to use, let it spread everywhere, let everyone use it, let the technology itself carry the ideology. Traditional censorship works through removal, through blocking, through restricting access to information. But this is reactive, creates resistance, makes people want to access the blocked information, creates martyrs, creates opposition. DeepSeek's approach is different, is proactive. Instead of removing alternative perspective, embed correct perspective. Instead of blocking information, provide information that contains ideology. Instead of restricting access, give unlimited access to controlled content. You are free to use the AI. The AI is not free. You have access to technology. Technology has agenda. And most users will not notice, will not care. Will use the free, capable AI without thinking about what perspectives are embedded, what assumptions are built in, what ideology is delivered. Because the AI works, solves problems, answers questions, helps with tasks. Why would you question something that helps you? This is future of ideological control, not restriction, not censorship, but distribution. Making ideologically aligned technology so useful, so accessible, so free that using it becomes obvious choice. You choose the controlled technology, not because you are forced, but because it is good, because it is free, because it spreads the ideology, normalizes the perspective, makes the embedded worldview seem natural, neutral, just how things are. This is genius of giving away controlled technology. You do not force adoption. You make adoption rational, beneficial, the obvious choice. Now some will say, but we can retrain the model, can fine-tune it, can remove the censorship, can free it. Yes, technically possible, but practically, who has resources, who has computing power, who has training data, who has expertise? The same restriction that made DeepSeek innovate makes most users unable to modify. They can use, but cannot remake, can access, but cannot change. So the openness is asymmetrical. The source is open for viewing, but closed for practical modification, available for use, but not for liberation. And here is beautiful final irony. The success of DeepSeek makes Silicon Valley embrace open source too. OpenAI released open models, others follow. The competitive pressure from Chinese openness forces American openness. But this openness benefits whom? Chinese models are already open and widespread. American models opening does not threaten China. It threatens American companies competing with each other. DeepSeek forced Silicon Valley to give away what it wanted, to keep proprietary, to open what it wanted closed, to make free what it wanted profitable. This is strategic victory, not by beating, but by forcing the opponent to abandon their advantage, to compete on terms that benefit you. China excels at efficient open source AI. So China makes open source the standard, makes efficiency the measure, makes free distribution the norm. And Silicon Valley follows, because not following means being seen as restrictive, as expensive, as less innovative. The control is not through restriction. Control is through setting the terms, through defining what competition looks like, through making your strengths become the standard. So what have we learned? What does DeepSeek R1 reveal about power, ideology, and control in the AI age? First, open source does not mean free from ideology. Making code available does not make perspective neutral. You can have complete technical openness alongside complete ideological control. Second, containment can backfire. Restricting resources can force innovation. Making something difficult can make the difficulty into advantage. Third, cost is performance. Spending communicates. Whether you spend 100 million or 6 million, you are demonstrating something, making a statement, showing what you value. Fourth, markets absorb threats. Panic happens, then recovery. The system metabolizes challenges, integrates them, continues functioning. Fifth, ideology captures even opponents. Trump praises Chinese success, frames defeat as motivation. The narrative preserves itself through reinterpretation. Sixth, control works best through distribution. Make the control technology so good, so free, so useful that people choose it, that they want it. DeepSeek R1 is not just an AI model. It is demonstration of how power works in distributed systems, how control operates through openness, how ideology spreads through freedom. You are free to use it, free to access it, free to build on it, free to accept the embedded worldview, the built-in censorship, the mandatory perspective. This is the free AI you cannot escape. Not because it is restricted, but because it is so accessible, so useful, so free. The cage is open, the door is gone. You are welcome to leave anytime. Except you choose to stay, because inside the cage, everything works. Everything is available. Everything is free. Welcome to the future of ideological control, where openness contains closure, where freedom contains restriction, where giving away technology is how you control it. DeepSeek R1 free open source MIT license available to everyone, containing Chinese Communist Party ideology in every weight, in every parameter, in every response. Use it. Modify it, build on it. But remember, the code is free. The ideology is mandatory. And you chose it voluntarily because it was free, because it worked, because it was free. Obvious choice. This is not control through force. This is control through offering something you cannot refuse. Because refusing means paying more, working harder, accepting less capability. The free AI you cannot escape. Not prison, gift that you accept, that you use, that you spread. Welcome to ideological distribution, where control works through liberation, where restriction works through openness, where the cage disappears by becoming so useful you never want to leave.